Today, I am so excited about this interview because my guest, Mitch Eisen from Contentware, is going to shed light on AI. How do we get started? What AI tools to use and how we can all utilize it to help our businesses grow. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and this is the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. I go around the world talking with business owners, marketing directors, technology companies to figure out what is the right mix for us all to use to help our businesses grow. So let's jump in. Hi, Mitch. How are you today?
Great. How you doing, Donna? Looking forward to talking to you.
I'm looking forward to too, because as we were talking about before I started to record, is I hear about AI all the time. I am in that space. I've given speeches about ChatGPT, but companies need help. They need help trying to figure out how can they utilize these AI tools. And that's what I'm hoping you can help us out with. I wanted to know, why do you think companies should start looking into AI tools now? Can they wait 6 months?
So in my view, I think it's super important to start thinking about it. Now, I get it, okay? Because here we are once again, chasing that next shiny object in the sky, the next digital marketing revolution that's going to change your life and is going to save you all this time. We've been down this road so many times before. Marketing automation, Web3, blockchain. Some of those have not come to fruition, as like we said. And if you're in charge of bringing on digital solutions into your company, people are pounding you all day long. You have to do AI. Here we are again, once again. And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this again, go through this process. I'm going to get nothing for it again. But here's the thing. Just because there's hype doesn't mean it's always overhyped or wrong. In my view, we're looking at a foundational transformation of business and personal society as we know it. People scoffed at the internet. Now, no one can do anything without the internet.
Right.
AI is a foundational technology that is ultimately going to become like plumbing of the internet. It's going to be like electricity. It will be everywhere, embedded into every interaction that we do on the business side, social side. So given that, it is not, I'm not saying you have to jump in and do things right now, but you absolutely must start paying attention because the world is changing very rapidly. And companies are experimenting and using AI in different ways, some successfully, some not successfully. And the most important thing I think if you could take away from this session is not think about taking AI on just because it's AI and it's this next shiny object. You have organizational challenges. You have business problems that you're trying to solve. You need to look at all of those problems like you do every day and evaluate, is AI a potential solution for one or more of these or a partial solution to it? At the end of the day, it's a tool like anything else. It's a tool like marketing automation. It's a tool like spell check. It's a tool like Excel. You don't say, I got to bring on Excel and say like, oh, by the way, I don't use spreadsheets. I don't need Excel, right? You have to have a business need for it. But again, we're at this moment now where there's a lot of hype, but there's like the biggest of biggest companies are investing tens and hundreds of billions of dollars in this infrastructure.
Yes.
And it will be there for the foreseeable future and all the way. And we're only at the dawn of it. When we talk about tools and technologies now, for those people who are old enough, the way I like to say it is if you listen to what AI is now, it's dial-up AOL.
Yeah.
That's where we are, okay? And it's taken us maybe 30 years, 25 years to get where we are from dial-up AOL to where we are now. And think of how much we've progressed.
Oh my gosh.
So now we're starting at that dial-up AOL, but we're going to leapfrog that rate of progression with AI exponentially.
Yeah. So look at what's happened since November of last year when ChatGPT first got introduced to all of us. I think that is what catapulted a lot of companies into just starting the conversation, looking around for these AI tools. And right now, like you said, if you're in that digital space, you are being bombarded with different AI tools every day, offering to do this. I can write your content. I can get it scheduled. I can do everything. But why? And I found this, why is it so important for companies to really sit back, evaluate their objectives before they start looking for AI tools?
Right. So the other analogy is that for those who can remember, in the early days of the internet, you couldn't even list out the number of companies that were formed every day. It was just so fast. And this is what's happening with AI, okay? You have scores, if not hundreds of companies and applications coming up every day. And it's hard if you're saying, oh, what do I have to do? You get all these marketing emails from people, whatever. You don't know what to do. But here's the thing. With AI, as I mentioned, it's foundational in nature, okay? So you have to have, I think, kind of a very sober view of it, okay? What are my biggest business challenges right now? Am I trying to scale my marketing operations? Am I trying to get better insight into my data? Am I trying to sort of streamline hiring or HR policies? List those out and say, what are the roadblocks for me achieving my objective? Let's take an example, okay? Webinars. The pandemic basically catapulted webinars, okay? We had webinars before, but never on the scale of it. And there is a little bit of webinar fatigue now, no question about it. But it had become a very effective tool of organizations communicating their mission, their products, their services, whatever have you. So many companies were like, wow, I want to do more webinars, or I want to do more content marketing. But what's the bottleneck? I don't have enough people to do it. I can't execute on that strategy. That's a perfect example of where AI can help you scale those activities, right? You can use AI, generative AI, to help you write some of that content marketing. You can use AI to help you write some of the promotional content so you can do more webinars. I talk to people all the time. They're like, oh my God, I'd love to do more webinars. I'm like, why don't you? They're like, well, I can't even get my promotional materials, my emails, my social media posts, my scripts done for the one webinar I'm doing a month. I know people love it. I want to do 4 a month. I can't do it. And that's a perfect example of how AI can fit into that mix of tasks, both strategic and tactically, that you can use to help scale those operations. Again, looking at something else, looking at some of the data. Like I'm thinking of hiring kind of a data analyst to sift through to see where profitability is. The tools of AI of looking at spreadsheets. So you can literally upload a spreadsheet and have the AI say, just look at this and find me interesting trends, if you will.
Yes. Yep.
And it'll reveal things to us that we may not have thought about before. Now, is it a panacea? Is it going to say, oh my God, all you have to do is press this button and you're going to double your revenues? No, of course not. But you have to be realistic. It may take us, if we even get to it, 5 hours, 10 hours. We might not even know what we're doing. We might not find those trends. AI is very good at finding things. So that's another very practical example of how we can use AI to do something that we know we should be doing more of and better of, but we don't have the resources, the time, or the commitment to do it. And here's the other thing. I'll tell you the truth, Donna. I'm lazy. Okay? I'm lazy. Okay? And what that means is I look in many cases for the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And so do most people. Most people are even too lazy to admit they're lazy. Okay? And it's not a terrible thing. Okay? That's just human nature. And so what happens is, what we're going to do is we're going to promote something, right? So we're going to go out and we're going to create a social media post. And we think it's pretty good. And we're like, okay. And you have this conversation in your head. You're like, okay, I know I should be doing something different on LinkedIn, different on Twitter, different on Instagram, and different on email. And as you're not doing it, you're thinking you should be doing this. What you do is you copy and paste and put it in. And it's just not optimal. This is another great example of where generative AI can do things where it can take your base content and optimize it for that channel, okay? And is it perfect? In many cases, it's actually good enough to go. Do you have to review it a little bit? Yes, but by taking that small effort, you can dramatically increase the chances of you being more successful. Doing the very thing you know you should be doing, but are too lazy to do it.
Yep. Well, I have to tell you, years ago, I was so guilty of that because we were on the HubSpot, we still are on the HubSpot platform since 2010, doing our social posting. And we first got on there and I was like, this is wonderful. I can do this one post. I can say LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and bam, and it's out. Well, then as you start to think of it, well, you know what? Tom Jones might be on every single one of my networks. So they're seeing the exact same post over and over. That's not going to help me get them to engage. And maybe they don't even like that first post. So if I can change that up, like what you're talking about, using AI, change it up with different titles, maybe a different image, a different, hook to it, then I'm going to get even more people engaging with the social posts and really get the interaction that we're all looking for.
Yeah. If you think about it, human nature is very interesting. Most humans have a very difficult time, either consciously or unconsciously, getting out of their own creative lane. Okay. Ask someone to write something and then ask someone to write something on a different topic. The style will be the same. There are very, very few people who can write in different voices and in
Yeah.
different styles. It's just hard for the human brain, for the average human
Yeah.
brain to do it. But that's another perfect example
Yeah.
where AI can help you kind of veer off into other creative lanes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It can take your ideas, your concepts, what you're trying to promote, but it can format it or rewrite it or paraphrase it exactly like you said, with a different type of hook or a different approach that you might not have thought of. And
Yeah.
that I think is really the area. Because here's the other thing, all of these tools that have come out from marketing automation to email marketing, in a way, what they do is they do two things that are counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
In the first way, they give you the ability
Yeah.
to segment, to treat audiences or slash individuals differently. But at the same time, they also give you the tools and the ability to treat everyone the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's back to the laziness. Oh, the stats are astounding, like of how many people use personalization, right? Should you? Yes. Okay. Now, when I say personalization, it doesn't mean to start off the email. It says, "Dear Mitch, I know my name is Mitch. You know my name is Mitch." There's no value in you telling me my name is Mitch. I don't give
Yeah.
you any credit for that. But if you can give me content that is timed, that's important, timed appropriately for where I am in the process in terms of buying or whatever that may be, that's valuable information to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Well, and
AI
if
can
it's
absolutely help that.
and also content that speaks directly to your specific industry or
Yeah.
challenges that you're having. Because I agree with you, some of these automation tools, people have gotten so excited about them. And whether it's lack of time or laziness, whatever you want to call it, people just found it easy to get it out there. Just get it out. I've
Yeah.
even had clients where I'm like, what subject line do you want to use? I don't care. Just get it out. Just blast it out.
Right.
I'm like,
Right. Right.
wait a
Right.
minute.
Right. Right.
If the
Well,
subject line isn't good, they're not
right.
even going to open it up. It doesn't matter what we're putting in the content.
Right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
so there are a lot of challenges with that, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, what are we doing in marketing? What is
Mm-hmm.
marketing? We're trying to convince someone to do something. And we can paraphrase it and say it a different way, but we're always asking people to take action, right?
Yes.
Buy this,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
subscribe to that, follow this, write your member of Congress. It's always a call to action. And even those soft sells of the content marketing where we say, oh, we're just trying to educate. You're not trying to educate. You're trying to lay the groundwork for when that next call to action comes in, that people are going to be more likely to do it.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do. But here's the thing, it's hard, okay? It's hard because basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to predict human intent.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to do that. And the reason that it's hard to do that is you don't even know what you want at any given moment. And
Right.
so me as the marketer, how am I supposed to know what you want in any given moment? And so that's sort of a little bit of the challenges of these technologies.
Yeah.
It gives you the ability to save time on certain things, but I would argue the time saved should be at the other end of that spectrum. So for example, you can take A/B testing to a massive scale using generative AI.
Right.
But you as the marketer, you need to spend your time looking at the analytics and understanding what it means and guiding that AI and not having this sort of self-perpetual machine. Think about it this way. I talk about this all the time. Everyone uses Amazon, right?
Yes.
And think to yourselves, you get sometimes recommendations from Amazon in an email, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you buy 100% of those items?
No.
Never, never, right? So, and there's no lack of funding at Amazon to try and predict what you're going to like. So
Yeah.
just think about that. First of all, you have that helps with the expectations of AI.
Yes.
Hey, first of all, Amazon does not expect that you're going to buy every one of those items on the recommended list. Okay.
No.
They're looking for a bump.
Yes.
Okay. And again, it's debatable what percentage bump it is. And I think that's the way people should be looking at this as well. You're not going to send out this email and all of a sudden I'm going to go from like an open rate of 5% to an
No.
open rate of 100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be incremental benefits
Yeah.
by
Well,
taking incremental steps.
yep. Like people always say, B2B marketing, when it's done properly, is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And that's where you're going to take those incremental steps to just improve your marketing every single time. So now you've mentioned to us about how hard it is. What would you say to companies? What are some practical ways that companies could get started using AI?
Right. So there's a couple things and AI is such a huge field. And the way
Right.
that I like to break it down, there's a couple of big buckets of AI. First of all, there's kind of the Elon Musky type of computer vision that helps run the Tesla. We're not involved in that. We don't need to think of that. The other two big buckets of AI that I think, well, now there's three buckets, but let's call them two buckets of AI. One is kind of the data analysis of side. You've got a mountain of data in your organization that holds a lot of really useful information that you might not have access to. So that's one bucket of using AI to analyze that data. Now, the truth is, in terms of getting started, that can be somewhat more challenging. There's all sorts of things in terms of you got to make sure the data is all in the right place, that the data is consistent. So there's some challenges. The real thing, and you mentioned this before, like we're at the year anniversary or just beyond of ChatGPT, is the generative AI side. Okay. And as the name suggests, that is using AI to generate quote unquote original content, whether that is blog posts, articles, email subject line, social media posts, etc. In my view, that is the easiest thing for companies to get started. Why? Let's look at some of the reasons. It's super easily accessible, right? ChatGPT, and now there's all sorts of other competitors. It's so easy to go online and start doing it.
And it's free. You know, ChatGPT right now, the one version 3.5 is free. So there's no outlay of money.
Right. And even if you wanted to get the latest and greatest, it's $20 a month. To experiment, it's nothing. There's no barrier to entry there. So it's easily accessible. It's free. It's also the quickest thing for you to evaluate whether it's right for you. Okay. Because with data, you're going to have to go through this process. You're going to have to ask a question. You're going to get something back. You're not sure. You have to ask someone else. Here, you're going to say, okay, practical thing. I have to write a marketing piece on whatever, my coffee cup that I have to sell, or my machinery, or my new publication. Okay. Take a sample of your marketing material and put it into ChatGPT and say, can you write me an email or 5 or 6 subject lines for that? So that is the easiest way. The barriers of entry are zero. Okay. You can do it. Everyone multitasks. You could probably do it right now as you're theoretically listening to this podcast. You're Googling ChatGPT to do that.
Yeah. And one of the ways, adding on to what you just said, is yes, you could write it, but I've also taken the exact content that might even be on a website and just say, can you make this sound more professional? And of course, added more details, you know, B2B marketing agency dealing with industrial brands. And then it really just takes that description and it gives you ideas. Not that I'm going to use it verbatim.
Right.
But it gave me ideas.
Well, there are 2 important points there. The first one is, in terms of why this is the easiest and the best to do, is because you can best evaluate the results. Okay, that's one of the key takeaways that I say for all of this. And it's more of a don't than a do. And that is, don't use AI to help you generate content for which you are not a domain expert, because you have no idea if it is accurate or not. The most successful implementations right now is, think of it as just this massive kind of spell check, grammar check that everyone is used to using already. Okay, it may sound unsexy, but that's really what it does. Okay, so the most easily tangible results that you can see is to take your content, your email, your subject lines, your social media posts, and have the AI write different versions of that. Okay, say, take this and write a version that is optimal for Twitter. Take this content and write an optimal Facebook post. Take this email and give me 10 subject lines that will engage the user to open it. So think about what you just did there. There are 2 things, and that's your second point also. With AI generated content, there are a couple of different outcomes. The first outcome is a good one. You look at it and you say, wow, this is great. Okay, this is great. I'm going to use this verbatim. That happens a lot. Applications like ours, people use that a lot. It's great. That's one successful thing. The other successful one is, this is pretty good, but I need to tweak it. That is an excellent outcome, because you might not have been able, because of time or that creative lane we talked about before, might not have even been able to get to that basic idea. Now you got you started.
This got you started, and now you're starting to think,
you put the refining edges on it, and now it's really your voice on that. And the third one that people overlook a lot is like, this is no good. But it made me think of something differently. And that is something that what I find is one of the most underrated but most valuable in the generative AI space. Okay, because had we not used that, we'd be stuck in our creative lane. But all of a sudden, this jars us a bit, and we're like, wow, I didn't think of it like that. You, AI, gave me the idea to write something that's really good. And then when I wrote something that's really good, I could take that and have the AI refine it. So if you look at it that way, these are the easiest ways to start practically with I believe tremendous benefits.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And to your last point, sometimes it gives you wrong information, which gives you an idea of how to market. I had this happen with a publisher. We went into ChatGPT and I said, who publishes XYZ magazine? Because we were curious what it would generate back.
Right.
Well, 3 times it came back with the wrong company. It came back with associations that they were media sponsors of, but not the publishing company. So what that did is gave us an idea that, you know what, we need to do more marketing around, this is published by so-and-so publishing company, which is a family-owned business. So it gave us ideas of things that we needed to promote more because it made us stand out from other industrial magazines.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing there also. People talk about all like the AI hallucinations and fake information. So it's all true. That's happened. But it depends what your starting point is. If you're looking for an excuse not to use AI, there's tons of them out there. Okay. But it's all about risk mitigation. Everything we do involves risk, and everything for those people who are risk averse, there's mitigation involved in that. So just think about it. You're like, I would never use AI because it's unreliable. Okay. So let me ask you a question then. You hired that new intern to write your social media posts. Are you giving them the username and password and saying, write whatever you want? No, you're not. You shouldn't. Well, maybe you are, but you shouldn't. What you should be doing is saying, okay, you're new here. Let me train you. Let me show you what we're all about, what our tone is. Send me some drafts of this. Let me respond. Let me tweak it. And when I have the confidence in you that it's going to be the way we like it, you can do it. You should have that exact same approach when using AI. Think of it as a new employee, right? Just think of it that way because you need to be at the end of the day, whatever content is going out from your organization, people will associate you with that content. And they're going to say, you wrote it. And you're going to say, well, the AI wrote it. That's not an excuse, right? So you have to mitigate the negative effects. And again, people are saying, well, I read this report that, a self-driving car, God forbid, killed someone. It's true. But that's not a reason to stop the technology, right? Like there are more people who are killed with humanly driving cars. You're not outlawing that. We're just creating new rules and new ways of trying to mitigate the risk. And that's what's going to happen in the AI space. There's going to be new rules and new mitigations to try and minimize the negative effects. And by the way, even some of the earlier attempts were failures. Okay. So you saw this GPT text coming up, right? All of these college papers, right? My social media. And then there were all these companies who came up with generative AI detectors, right? That they could, with a 99% accuracy rate, determine if your content was written by AI. And you know what? It was a failure. Okay. They put in Shakespeare and they said, this is a 98% chance that it was written by AI. And in fact, OpenAI, the ones that have produced ChatGPT, they created their own AI generative text detector, and they finally pulled it because it was not effective. So the point is, you're going to have to. We're in the dawn of this technology, and so I guess my point is, there's a tremendous reason to start because the benefits are tremendous, but don't go into it blindly. There are risks. And you have to mitigate those risks, and you have to be careful. And that's why I think starting off with using generative AI for copywriting issues or tasks that you have is a really easy way to get started with potentially real benefits with little risk.
Yeah. And I also say to people, if you're going to start out, like you said before, as an assistant, but use as an assistant, use it as a baseline. It should not be, okay, generate this. Okay, take it, boom, just send it out, because it has to have your individual brand. It has to sound like you. For instance, I always use the analogy of it generated something one time that said, hey, dude. Well, I would never, ever send out an email that said, hey, dude. So just little things like that. You've got to make sure it sounds like you. It's got to reinforce your brand and sound like your brand.
So there was another sort of bucket of a lot of discussion right now of organizations using chatbots. Okay. So, and that has tremendous potential on the customer service side, on the marketing side. So when evaluating those, and that's where it gets a little bit more challenging, right? Because you have control over it, but you don't have full control over it, right? And it can be a positive experience for customers, prospects, etc., when it goes well. But there are risks involved when it doesn't go well. Okay. And so that's an area that people are like on the customer service side, we can, downsize our customer service operations because we can use chatbots instead.
Right.
There are use cases for that, and there are a lot of people doing that, but we're still very, very early on. And so if you're considering that, I would say use that cautiously, given
Yes.
where we are in the evolution of this technology right now.
Yep. Yep. I was at a trade show in October and I was speaking about using Chat GPT and AI tools for manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
And after I gave this speech, there were a lot of different questions, but one that came up, or really two, was, will AI take my job?
Mm-hmm.
And this is
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
I have a firm answer from that, but
Right.
let's hear what you have to say.
So I have an evolving answer.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been in this for a long time already. And at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I said no. Okay. And there's a lot of people who say no.
Mm-hmm.
Now I say yes, but. Okay. And here's the thing, technologies can be disruptive.
Yeah.
Large foundational transformative technologies are very disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
So here I want to give you an example. The year 2000, how many travel agents do you think there were in the United States?
I have no clue.
About 120,000. Okay. Now, in the last few months, you had mentioned you go to New York, other places. Like, how many times have you called a travel agent to get an airline ticket, or called the airline to get an airline ticket? Zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zero. Okay. Today, there's about 70,000 travel agents in the United States. So the technology disrupted the industry. Two things happened. There was a reduction in the number of people in that industry.
Yeah.
Number two, the people who remain in that industry are doing different things than they were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the analogy that I use with AI. Okay. So in my view, the people or the jobs that are most vulnerable at the beginning are what I call the first drafters of business. Okay. And that is, regardless of what industry you're in, even legal industry,
Yeah.
if you're like a first drafter of a contract, or if you're in the manufacturing industry and you need to write a manual, there's a first drafter of that manual. If you're in marketing like we are,
Yes.
there's the first draft of an email or the first draft of a social media post. Those, in my view, the less technical ones, those people who are doing those jobs are the most vulnerable to be displaced.
Yeah.
However, the first people, in my view, that will be displaced, guaranteed, there are two groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
Those people that use AI and incorporate AI into their jobs, and those people that refuse to.
Yeah.
Those people that refuse to sort of bring AI onto the team, I think those are the ones, and again, if they're the first drafters, are the most vulnerable.
Yes.
So it will disrupt the industry, okay? Because it's also like, if you think about it, like marketing automation is a really good kind of analogy. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we were just starting to get that, triggered messaging. And if you think of the progress that's been made over the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years, I mean, it's great, but not much has improved on it. Like, in other words, like if you respond in a certain way, I create a rule set, it'll send you a reminder email or maybe even SMS. But we haven't had any revolutionary changes in that technology. It's great,
Right.
and it's getting better and easier to use.
Yep.
But with AI, we're just at the dawn of this.
Yes.
So when we talk about displacement, we have to think about job displacement. We have to think about what is going to happen in the very near future. And so I think it will displace. And then as an organization, you have to be thinking about how you're going to staff your organization. Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again, in my view, the skill set that you're going to need, if we just use, let's say, marketing as an example, you're going to need a higher level skill set for each of the fewer employees that you're going to have in your department.
Right.
The skill set that you're going to need is to take those AI first drafts and make them better.
Right.
To
But
take
don't you feel these AI tools may take those first drafters and if they embrace this AI and they evolve with the industry, just like you mentioned at the beginning, we've had to evolve several times throughout our careers because of the different things that have come up. And the people that take this on, try to learn, yes, they're going to leave that first drafters, but then they're going to head towards an area that they really want to be in. They want to be in the real meat of the marketing if they're in that first drafters.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. And I'm thinking about this, and honestly, my honest reaction is everyone should visualize a pyramid.
Yeah.
An inverse pyramid. Okay. there's far less of those high quality level employees than there are at the top tier. And what's going to happen is there's not enough, first of all, there's not enough space for all of the middle tier to go in that next tier, and you don't need as many of them. So there will be a displacement. There absolutely will be a displacement. And the crazy thing when you think about this, not crazy, just an interesting observation for me, is, the world is a funny place. We're just sort of coming out of lockdown and pandemic and the whole remote work from home thing. You know who didn't work from home, who cannot work from home? These are all of the quote unquote blue collar workers, electricians, plumbers, drivers, certain manufacturing. And those jobs are not at risk currently. It's all of these other jobs in the information economy that those are the ones that are at first, I believe, at risk in this. So it can be a little scary, right? If you're sort of getting into this and like, oh my God, like in 3 years, am I going to have this job? I think, to your point, I think it's very valuable for people to embrace the AI, to make themselves more valuable within the organization by increasing their skill set to that analytical level, to the one that can be able to make those decisions on things and to oversee. Because again, I don't think we're ever going to, well, I don't know, but we're probably not going to get to a point where the AI is just kind of like unsupervised and unchecked. There's always going to be people looking, coaxing, changing, editing, et cetera, as they should be.
Yes.
And so that is the skill set that is going to be most desired by organizations, in my view.
Yes. I agree with that. And I think people do, just like everything, not just AI, as an individual, you've got to constantly be educating. You've got to constantly trying to foresee what is in the future for your career. And yes, you're right. Some people might get displaced and maybe they're going to end up in different industries that are more in line with their attributes. I'm hoping, this is what I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, the other really important thing that we sort of haven't touched on is the whole issue of bias in the AI. And that is something that is really important for people to think about, right? So generative AI, it's getting better, but it still has the risk of being biased in terms of racially biased, gender biased. And that's just because it's been trained on all of this material that's been out there that in of itself can be inherently biased. And so that's a really, really important factor when considering bringing this on. And that's even more so why you have to have someone overlooking this. So it's an interesting analogy.
That's a very good point. That's an excellent point.
Like even in an application like ours, where it sort of generates a bunch of content to promote something, a webinar or a blog post, one of the big pushbacks we get are like, why can't we mass approve these things? Like, okay, you guys did great. You created, 60 social media posts over the next 6 weeks. Cool. Why do I have to approve each one?
They don't want to go through all 60.
They don't want to go through all 60, but in a way, and we'll see how we're working on tools to help that. But the thing is, you want to be doing that, right? Like you're natural. And that's the other lesson I want to not lesson, but maybe something to think about. The AI tools were going to speed up a massive part of the marketing production line, if you will. Okay. The brainstorming, the thinking, the wordsmithing, all of that. And that's going to get you from 0 to 60 really, really fast. And you should use that. But don't use that and say, I'm going to get from 60 to 120 that fast. That's the time to slow it down. Okay.
Because if they don't slow down, that's when everyone's going to be pushing out this content, which is going to be the exact same across all your competitors. You're not going to stand out. And there's no way to build those deep relationships with your prospects and customers that will keep them with you year after year.
Well, and this is another really important part of this. The word you use is really important, which is stand out. Okay. So now, ChatGPT came up and they're like, and people are like sitting back like, So now I'm set, man. I write like 2 blogs a week. Now I can write 10 blogs a week. I write 1 monthly newsletter. I'm going to write 4 monthly newsletters. I'm set. Life is good. But guess what? Everybody else is doing the same thing. So if you think of an analogy like a lake, take any lake and visualize it in your mind. And that lake is 20 feet deep. Okay. And that 20 feet, that water in that lake is the current status of content out there on the internet that you're competing with. So you're trying to get your content to stand out to people. So now you're like, cool, I'm going to use ChatGPT. But so is everyone else. So now that lake is no longer 20 feet deep. it's 100 feet deep
Right.
with crazy amounts of content. So as a very practical strategy, people talk about generative AI and AI in general as time saving. True.
Yeah.
But what do you do with that time saved? And so
Right.
this is I think a very important point. There's all sorts of different types of content marketing that happens, right? You need your sort of overall type social media posts,
Yeah.
emails,
Yeah.
things to keep in front of people so they don't forget you. It's more complicated than that, but that's
Yeah.
an important aspect. Then there are high quality pieces, thought leadership pieces, white papers, speeches, other things that you do that are unique to you that you should be doing more
Yeah.
of. And so the best practical implementations that I've seen is to use tools like ChatGPT and others to help you with that kind of like air cover marketing, to give you the time to write those unique marketing pieces that show your thought leadership. That is the thought leadership of something that's happening right now in the industry, where the models at ChatGPT and others haven't caught up with that yet because it's still trained on older data. So
Right.
that's another way to think of it. You have to do both. You have
Yeah.
to do, because if you're not doing that constant air cover marketing, no one's going to know about you, so they won't see your high quality thought leadership piece. But
Quality. That's the key right there when you said that, quality, because that's
correct,
when people go in, they've got to add in, of course, current details. Like you
right?
said, ChatGPT, I think now they're saying as of January
Yeah,
2022,
yeah,
but
yeah.
still you have what happened yesterday, what happened
Correct,
today. You
right.
need to mention that and you need to make it your own. But even with like this podcast, we don't want this to be a fluff podcast. We wanted to offer practical steps that companies can start to take, which you gave them already. But that's what you also have to do with all content that you get
Correct,
out there.
correct. Because and I do fear this, right? So by the way, the other, I mean, this should not be like a podcast. It could be like a year cast. We could spend like a year talking about this. But if you think about it, we've only talked about one side of the equation, and
Yeah,
that is us producing the content.
that's right.
We have not talked about the other side of the equation, which is the search engines and other places that classify and serve up that content to people who are searching for it. So,
Mhm.
the Googles and the Bings and all the others around, whatever they're not sitting around saying, you know what, content is content. They're not doing that. So, and that's another really important reason
Yeah.
for taking on, I believe, that strategy that I suggested earlier, because we could be at a risk. I think we're already at a risk
Mhm.
of basically creating the greatest spam machine in the history of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. That we can basically, it's going to be a race to the middle. And the
Mm.
middle is not where you want to be, right? We're going to create this massive machine, which we've already created, that has the potential to create what I refer to as Mick content. Okay.
Mhm.
No
Mhm.
disparaging for McDonald's, but like Mick content. It's kind of like that generic content that you read it, that you're like, yeah, I sort of get it, but you sort of come away maybe with a hollow feeling.
Right.
Okay.
Like
And
what did it offer me?
right,
What did
because
I
like,
get out of this?
what did I get of? Because like, am I just being manipulated? Did someone just send me something that I read before and massaged it a little bit? Okay, and
Oh,
just
please, you
like
see that all the time. People are regurgitating other people's content. They don't put a fresh
totally
spin on it. It's a waste of people's time, and I think it's a waste
right.
of the whole marketing space.
Well, this is why I say that the best implementation is to use the AI to do two things: to help you write that air cover content that you're going to need, and then to use it for ideation and other ways, so you can write those thought leadership unique pieces that make you stand out, because AI hasn't changed the fact you need to stand out.
Yeah.
It's just getting harder and harder and harder to stand out. And I say to people like, whatever, you're in a publisher, right? And I say to them, who's your biggest competitor? And publishers say, well, we publish the metal manufacturing magazine, so my biggest competitor is the metal finishing. I'm like, that's not your biggest competitor. They're like,
Mhm.
what do you mean? I said, you know who your biggest competitor is? They're like, what? I said, Amazon.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? I have nothing to do with Amazon. I was like, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's go to one of your prospects or customers' inboxes,
Yeah.
okay, and look at where your email falls into their Amazon emails or others.
Mhm.
So you're competing at the most important time in the marketing thing, the first attention grabber. Like, people say, well, the content that I write has nothing to do with Amazon. That's right. But if no one's reading your content, it's
Yeah.
irrelevant. So
Yeah.
this is the thing. You're competing with an ever-growing different players of different things that are doing an equal, if not better job than you, than
Yeah.
trying to get people's attention. And
Yeah.
so we need to use the AI at that first level. How can I use it as an ideation tool to help me grab that attention? Yes, it's important what I write in my newsletter, my social media. I get it. It's super important. But you got to get through that first door first.
Yep. Yep. And that was one of the things I've used with ChatGPT, is also taking content and having it rewrite it for specific titles.
Right.
Because how a CEO might resonate with information is different than an engineer. And so it's the same content in our words, but maybe reword it, having takeaways, having bullets a certain way that would be more informative. Have CFO put in those numbers. They love the numbers. But like you said, that takes time. It's a quality piece, but then it will resonate with the people. They'll see you as a thought leader, and then you can develop those relationships of loyal customers.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's, the generative AI is great for writing the content, but I think it's also, you should use that as ideation for different strategies and different types of promotion, not what's written, but the time of day or the difference. I had this story all the time, years ago, where I was at some conference and we were talking about marketing, and it was a big audience. Okay. And I don't know how the question came up. It was like, what's the best send time? And to send an email out. And so some guy came up and he said, like the worst send time ever, our lowest rates by far, are Friday afternoon. And I was like, okay. And he gave the reasons why. Everyone is leaving the office. No one wants to do anything serious. You're not going to make any progress. So like, okay, legit. And I was like, anyone else? Another guy puts up his hand and says, you know what the best time to send is? I was like, what? He says, Friday afternoon. We get our highest open rates. People don't want to do anything serious with work. And both are right. But here's the thing. They're right for different people. We talk about best practices all the time. If there was one best practice, we would all be doing it. The main thing in marketing is if everyone's doing it, you shouldn't be doing it, right? You should be doing something different. And this is, again, another area where tools like the AI tools can help you with that. But conceive of different campaigns. How can I experiment a little bit out of the mainstream to see if it works? Right? I don't have the time to ideate on that my own. Have the AI help you do it. Experiment. That's the other really important thing. At the end of the day, it's human intent. And as I said before, I don't know what I want. So there's zero chances that I can expect someone else to know what I want. So in the end, marketers, really what we are experimenters. We have a hypothesis. We have an idea. This might sell. This copy might work. We have no idea. So where we are right now, it's even more important to experiment. And tools like the AI can help you experiment. Do two things. Experiment with ideas that you've already had. You in your mind, you're smart. You have an idea this might work. It can help you execute on that. And it can even give you other ideas to help you do things to stand out. Because that's the end of the game. Yes, it's true, and everyone says it over the years. Marketers, all we're trying to do is stand out. And in any moment in marketing history, everyone will tell you we're in the most difficult moment to gain attention, and it's probably true. We're at a scale that is different, because before there were, it was harder to scale things, and now it's easier to scale things, both for good and for bad actors. We haven't even talked about sort of like fake information and deep fakes and things like that, which is the darker side of the AI, where again, we have to get people's attention. We have to experiment in different ways. And again, I believe with AI, that's going to really help us to accelerate those processes if you make the effort to do it.
Right. And like you said, these AI tools can help you with that psychology part that you mentioned. And when you use some of the psychology part and realize the individual that you're speaking to, you change that content so it's written in a way that these people take in information. You're offering something of value to them. That is when you will stand out from your competition, but it takes a lot of work. And the AI tools can give you those ideas. They can give you that baseline to get you started, to start doing these really quality initiatives.
Yeah. And the other thing that we really have to focus on now is, they've done a lot of studies, and people's attention spans are getting lower and lower and lower. And it's a terrible thing, and in fact, if you look at some of the implications, if you look at movies, they did analysis of movies, and you look at length of scenes and how quickly they cut between scenes from the 1950s, the 70s, etc. We're cutting between scenes so often right now. And you think about it, there are people who won't even sit through a 12-second TikTok video because it doesn't grab their attention. And by the way, they're not just looking at that TikTok video. They've got some other screen up where they're doing this all the time, okay? So we as marketers need to understand that there are two trends that are bad for us. One, there's this massive amount of content that is flooding people.
Yes.
Flooding people.
It is.
All of their channels, and we're drowning in that. Number two is that our attention spans are getting less and less. So we have this massive volume of content flying at us, demanding our attention, and our appreciation for that and our tolerance of that is less and less. So those are two bad trends when it comes to marketing. And that means that the key for us is to capture people's attentions quickly.
Yes. Yeah,
And
make sure you're targeting that very specific audience. And I tell people now, get granular. It's no longer like years ago, oh, let's go to every CEO. No, go to CEO who are maybe pharmaceutical manufacturers who use HPLC machines. Like, I mean, that granular, and send them that message that speaks directly to them.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed right now, it is all about building relationships.
Correct.
So in regards to that, building relationships, what do you think is a good mix of channels to help complement those one-to-one emails? Because I love email marketing. I love that direct marketing piece, but of course you can't just do an email.
Yeah. So we started out a long time ago. We've been in the email marketing space. Okay. And so that was like right at the dawn of, the 2000 when HTML emails were first coming up, and associations, organizations, companies were transitioning from their printed advertisements, whether those were newsletters, whether those were, whatever those were, to emails. Okay. And that was super successful for a very long time. And then social media came along.
Yeah.
And what was the main mantra of social media? Aside, not the main one of them. It is the email killer. Okay. People said,
email was dead.
Email would come. And by the way, I've been to this email funeral so many times. Okay.
It started with the postal, first it was print was dead. We had that. Now we had email is dead.
So, I literally had to buy a new suit to go to all those funerals. Okay. But here's the deal. Email continues to be in the digital space.
Yes.
The best conversion tool.
Yes.
There are more conversions from email, whether you're selling subscriptions, products, whatever, than any other tool. Okay. But that doesn't mean that these other channels aren't important and necessary. So there's a mix. So I believe you need to, obviously it depends on your business or your organization.
Yeah.
But social media is good for awareness, right? You need to have a lot more of that. And it's also, if you think about it, social media is very hard to have a one-to-one conversation with programmatically. I mean, you can, people, instant, DM, etc. You can do that, but not programmatically. It's harder to do that programmatically.
And not if you're promoting an expensive offer, you're not going to get someone to start applying to a social post.
Correct.
But I agree with you. Maybe they already got an email, and how many emails we all get every single day. We don't get to act on everything that's important to us. Maybe we say, oh, we'll put it off for later.
Yes.
And you forget, but then you see that social post, and that's that thing that just triggers in your mind, oh, I got to get back to that email.
Yeah. I mean, there's a number of sort of scenarios that way. I think one of the most common, and by the way, people buy from social, people buy from email with never being on social. It happens all around. But the main thing is the following that you want to achieve. Yeah. Yeah. You want to have that social media presence, talking at a sort of higher level, even more specific level, but whatever your organization is, whatever you're trying to market, and this is the most important part, such that when someone sees, again, that awareness, when someone sees that email from you, because people they look left to right. Who's it from? Not a trusted source, not so keen on that. Then they're going to glance at your subject line. They're not going to read the whole thing. They're going to glance at it. I don't like this, gone. Then they're going to scan down to see your little, preview text, whatever that is. And so the best that you can hope for, not the best, but what you should be hoping for is either consciously, but it happens more subconsciously, that when they're in that scanning process, that social media feed that they've been looking at comes into play. Mm-hmm. That is where the connection is. There's a recognition, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, that says to the brain, this is something I should be looking at. That's what you should be hoping for. So the social media is more frequent. Mm-hmm. It's less personalized to the individual, but it keeps your brand, your product, whatever that is, top of mind or up there. So when they get to some of those closing channels like email, which is a great closer, their mind is somewhat primed for that.
Yes.
And the timing of that, there's all sorts of scientific studies. It's a little challenging to do that, or to know for sure where it goes. People have to experiment. Again, experimentation is important.
Yes.
But you want to consistently have that social media presence, and then have an email kind of follow up on it for that closing, and reference things that were in that social media post.
Yeah.
And that can very much help on that mix.
Yeah, it helps reinforce it, but it also gives the brand validity.
Right.
Because like we said, there's lots of competitors out there. But like you said, if you have those social posts with good pieces of content or mentioning something that is top of mind for that individual, and that's what I think people should consider. Your social posts don't need to be generic. Remember,
Right,
you
right.
are writing for your specific audience. You don't want to work with everybody.
Right.
As much as business owners, we want to grow our customer base and have
Right.
these huge customer base. We know that it's this, what do they say? 20% of your customers, are 80% of your business.
Right.
So you want to concentrate on that 20%. And that's really what's going to help your business grow.
Right. And the other challenge, I see this all the time. People are talking about, we're going to write this marketing sequence or this email sequence or even the social media sequence. And people are like, well, on social media post 4, we shouldn't put this information in because we put it in number 2, and the same thing with emails. So I was like, do you really think that everyone is reading everything you're putting out there? And it's like,
they're pretty high on themselves.
Right. We like to believe that, but it's like the high, like we were in this, email marketing space, the highest open rates for emails, highest, were those where they were sending out to, I think it was like graduate students who had to fill out a form, otherwise they'd lose their funding. Okay, you're going to get a 9%. But if you're marketing something, no one's reading all of your content.
Yeah.
So that's the other challenge. And that's, again, bring it back to the AI where it can help you. You need to seed those emails and those social media posts with nuggets of information that stand alone, that don't require any information from previous emails or social media posts, that can give that user that conscious or subconscious sense, aha, this is a brand that I trust, this is a person that I trust, this is something that I'm interested in, and they sort of file it away subconsciously, such that when when there's a promotion or something, boom, they're going to do that, right?
Yeah. That is a very good point. And I think, I've held you so long today. I think you and I could talk all day about this.
Right.
But I think we better leave on that last tidbit of what you told us, how every piece of content that you put out there has to stand on its own merits, offering value that then they will complement each other, but they also can stand independently.
Absolutely.
All right. So Mitch, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks. And just the last word is just start. Start to look into it. Don't take on a whole thing. Just start.
Very good. There you go. You've heard it here. You've got to get started on looking at AI tools, seeing how they will fuel your objectives as a company so that you won't be left behind, because companies who don't start looking into this will be left behind. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the B2B Marketing Excellence Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss our next episode. And in the meantime, if you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to send me an email to dpeterson@worldinnovators.com. Till next time, have a great day.